Hey everyone, this is Ethan. I am back in my home base in Providence, Rhode Island, to talk about the Seattle Seahawks. It might be a bit of a shorter video because the Seahawks are a BPA team in many ways, so I can't really mock them that intensely, which is both good and bad. Um, Definitely, we'll see what happens the day of the draft with who they take in a lot of their rounds. We'll see who slips, we'll see who rises up. Maybe a little bit later, after I finish running all the teams, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Before going too much further, I wanted to just make a pitch. I'm down to my final quarter of teams. I think we have 8 more left. So, if you want to see anything else, you'll see a lot of written content from me after this. But in terms of draft content, let me know and I'll do what you want me to do. If not, then I probably will just do other things and you'll like them hopefully. Scardraft.com is where my new hub is going to be. I might be doing a 7-round mock tonight if I have the time/effort to do so. So if I do that, definitely keep an eye out for it. So anyway, going to Seattle, they have a really interesting combination in Pete Carroll and John Schneider. On one hand, John Schneider comes from a BPA philosophy with Ted Thompson in Green Bay, where he takes the best player on his board, the best value that is going to be available in the draft, sort of puts it to his own devices, and makes that the paramount perspective. Pete Carroll came in last year and hit it off immediately with Schneider. Those two are thick as thieves. And he sort of adopted that strategy to his own, which might be a reason why Carroll was better last year than some expected him to be, because a lot of the rookies contributed. I mean, Russell Okung was great in limited time he played. Earl Thomas, near the top league in interceptions. Golden Tate, huge on returns, and then also contributed in other aspects as well. Walter Thurman was a steal. Injury bug sort of hurt him. And I think that the Thurman pick also, if you think about it, Carroll got some nice insight on him because he was the Pac-10 coach, which also affected him not taking Taylor Mays and taking Earl Thomas instead. He had deemed that Thomas would be a better prospect than Mays, so he decided to pass on the former Trojan, and he felt like he needed to go for Earl Thomas. Interesting little thing there, and I think that a lot of times we'll see if he wants a player like not Earl Thomas, but like Sharice Wright out of USC in this draft, who I think could fill a need for them and also is a pretty talented guy. Third or fourth round, we'll see if he takes the bait. I think it's very possible, but we'll see. So, looking at Seattle, their first round pick, they definitely have a lot of options. And one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is character. See, I think that Pete Carroll's the kind of guy who feels like he could win anybody over. He is a player's coach through and through, and he is going to perpetuate a liveliness, a sort of vivacity in the locker room, and maybe a little bit more leniency in the locker room than many other coaches in the NFL, coming from the college experience and having so much success with that sort of motivational style. It would make a lot of sense for him to do that. Now, I think this would be a prime landing spot for a quarterback, and there are a few reasons why. First of all, Matt Hasselbeck's a good quarterback, but he's getting older, and it makes a lot of sense to groom a guy behind him. Also, eventually he's ready to take over. Second of all, new offensive coordinator in Darrell Bevell, who runs an entirely different system than Seattle has been running, much more vertical. And I think that that's extremely important for them because they're going to need a new quarterback who is better than Hasselbeck at making longer throws. Hasselbeck's best trait is being able to throw against the blitz. When he senses the rush better than just about any quarterback in the league not named Brady or Manning. But in 11 on 11, just typical passing, he's average at best. And he's also average at making big plays. He doesn't make a ton of big plays with his arm. So I think that it would behoove Seattle, I think that they would see this as well, to get a franchise quarterback who can maybe learn from Hasselbeck for a year or so, and then eventually take over. And this year's draft has a bunch of prospects who are going to need some time to develop, but if they develop, they can become really good. So the name that jumps out to me is Ryan Mallett, because I don't think they'll be able to trade up for Jake Locker. And even if they would have the opportunity to get him, I'm not sure that Carroll likes him that much, because we talked about this a little bit with Jim Harbaugh. I want to make sure I got the Harbaugh right, where I don't think that San Francisco is a likely landing spot for Locker, because I don't think that Harbaugh liked him when he saw him play or not play in college, because of course Locker set out the game against Stanford and Harbaugh called him out on it, saying it wasn't a tough move. So I'm not sure what Carroll's opinion is of Locker. It could be very high because Washington has beaten them in the past, or it could be very low. Either way, I don't see Carroll trading up into the top 10 to draft him, at least not at this point in time. And I'm not sure that he slips past 10 to Washington at this point. I think that he is such an ideal pick for Mike Shanahan and that offense. It would surprise me a little bit if he isn't the guy. Just because he needed a QB really badly. And I've heard some very mixed things about Kyle Shanahan's role in the decision-making process. But at this point, I'm a little bit more inclined to stick to my gut and say Locker will be a Redskin. So, I think that I would target Mallett for here at this point. But my issue is that I'm not sure they'll see Mallett as a more valuable guy than a lot of the other players on the board. Most notably, Jimmy Smith, who would be a great fit at cornerback if they decide not to go for a guy like Shareece Wright a little bit later in the draft. Christian Ballard, who would be really good as sort of the defensive ends that they play. They have one who's more of an outside linebacker pass rusher and one who's more of a run stuffer. And Ballard, even though he's a lot more explosive than Red Bryant, who they had last year, would be a perfect fit on that line. And he would be the kind of guy who I think they would go crazy for. So I feel like that those would be three possible guys for them. I mean, right now I'm thinking that the allure of the QB might be a little bit too much for Seattle, but it'll definitely bear watching over time. A couple of other ticks with Seattle: they love drafting from big schools. They will draft guys who are athletes, guys who they think can come and make a difference right away. Best players available, best values available, same sort of thing. And they like Pacific guys as well. I mean, Walter Thurman was a steal in the 4th round last year. I think that one guy who could slip, who they would totally take in a second, is Jacquizz Rodgers, the running back out of Oregon State. And he is an interesting prospect because he has sort of lost a lot of value due to some proverbial issues with his athleticism. And I say proverbial because I don't think there are any issues. He reminds me a bit of Ray Rice the way he plays. Now, I don't think he's athletic as a lot of other players in this draft class. I think that's what's going to kill him in the long run in terms of his draft stock. But I do think that he could be very useful as sort of a complement to Marshawn Lynch and maybe even Justin Forsett as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the BPA in the 4th round or so, and they decide to pull the trigger on him. If they don't take a player early who could be a defensive end, 2nd round spot would be perfect for one, since there should be a glut in that area in terms of 3-4 defensive linemen who can sort of play that run stuffing role. And then also, Shareece Wright, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the many cornerbacks who can make a lot of sense for Seattle. But either way, they're going to take BPA, BVA, whatever. I do think quarterback has to be something to bear in mind. And overall, Seattle is going to be interesting to watch because they have that BPA thing going on. So a little bit more unpredictability. Tomorrow, we'll do a team that has tons of unpredictability in Baltimore because they go strictly by their board. However, there is one player who they seem to be focusing in on and who I think would be their 1st round pick. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But Celia for now. If there is a UConn-related reason why I will not be doing a video tomorrow, I'll let you know, but hopefully it'll be all good. So, bye.